Sufi movements in Egypt who are apolitical. They have nothing to do with politics, but they perform the role because that does not touch upon the political process. But those who touch upon the political process, the legitimacy of the regime, these are the institutions and the organizations and the movements that are always ostracized from the political process. Of course, this is creating. I have to indicate also that one of the features of the process of relationship between Islam and politics in Egypt is, over the last 3 or 4 years, there was a sort of reconciliation between some of the Islamist extremist groups, I believe such as Jama'at al-Jihad al-Islami, and the government. You know, they say, okay, we will work within the political process, we will pursue peaceful means, and they were released from jail. But that did not have an impact on the political process in Egypt. The government is trying to co-opt them in order to, because the jails are full of people who are jailed from certain Islamist groups, but it did not have a major impact in the 90s, this was the era of the peak of the violent activities of some of the Islamist groups. The government was successful in cracking down upon them in cooperation with other governments. But as you see, during the last 2 or 3 years, there is a resurgence of the process of using violence against the government, as has been enunciated in Sharm el-Sheikh. No, he did not allow them. He did not. As a matter of fact, they are always labeled, you know, by the media as the forbidden group. They do not call them Ikhwan. They call them the forbidden group.
Forbidden group.
Forbidden group. So, what do you know about the forbidden group? But they never said Ikhwan. They ran into elections as independents. The difference is that in the last parliamentary election, I would say 80% of the candidates were prevented from running, either by put them in jail before the election, or by arresting their supporters, or whatever. Nevertheless, 17 of them came to the parliament. Now, for the last parliamentary elections, the government relaxed the crackdown a little bit, because they came in the aftermath of the presidential elections, in which there were lots of democratic promises. Promises of democratic reform, that this is a new era for Egypt, and for the first time we have competitive presidential elections. So the government for a little bit relaxed the crackdown rules, which resulted in 88 members of them coming to the parliament. 88. When it became clear that this will cross the threshold of 100, which means they will control 1/3 of the total number of members of the parliament, which means in this case they will block any law issued by the parliament which is in contradiction with Islam, they will stop it.
I see.
And as a matter of fact, there is a rumor now in Egypt that the government in a year or two may dissolve that parliament because of the lack of democracy, lack of political reforms, lack of meaningful participation. They are dissatisfied with the process that the president is trying to push his son to succeed him in the presidency. They have staged many political processes but the question, this was never turned into a mass political movement. See, the anti-Mubarak movement tried to benefit from the external pressure of the government to democratize. But that external pressure now has relaxed a little bit. You know, the representation and the judgment of the Islamists to hold new elections in which these people will
Called a forbidden movement.
Yes, with their future in politics, let me tell you, that will depend on the future, what will happen to the political regime in Egypt. Egypt now is undergoing a process of political turmoil. But this turmoil is at the intellectual level rather than at the mass level. Many intellectuals are dissatisfied with the policy of the government. Americans or Europeans have relaxed the pressure of the government to democratize. When they saw what happened in Palestine, that the free elections brought Hamas to power. The limited free elections in Egypt has brought 88 Ikhwan members to the parliament. And they don't want to see that. They want elections would bring only the secularists to the government, not the Islamists. So the government seems to have made a sort of an understanding with the United States and the European Union countries. That is, you relax the pressure to democratize, and we'll cooperate with you in many issues, such as Iraq, Afghanistan, Palestine, things like that. So that has weakened the anti-Mubarak political protest.
Including Islamic movement.
Exactly, including the Islamic movements. That has weakened their impact. So if the regime persisted and that process of political protest failed to bring concrete results, then I can see the future of the Muslim Brothers will be a continuation of the past. They will continue, they will never disappear, never, simply because the harsh years during Nasser, when Nasser gave them a very harsh treatment, they bounced back. Yeah? They always bounce back, always. Yeah? So they will not, they will continue there. And the skirmish between them and the regime will continue. But if the regime, for some reason, is changing, and free elections were held in the country, then you can count on their forming the next government. Simply because they will the election because they use very simple political symbols. Islam is the solution. That is the symbol of the Muslim world. Islam is the solution. And that slogan for many Egyptians is quite appealing. Not only that, but also they provide these services to the people, which bring the people closer to them. So there are two scenarios. The scenario of the failure of the political protests in Egypt, in this case, you will find more of the same in Egypt. The success, you will see them still in power, becoming a genuine political party and participating in the election. Which scenario is more likely? Unfortunately, I have to tell you, I think the scenario of the continuation of the past is more likely, because that process of political protest has been only a process at the top, at the level of the electorates, and for some reason which many people cannot explain.